Okay, all right. Okay, there's some energy here. My name is Chris Sell. I serve with the Burgess Institute for Entrepreneurship Innovation here at MSU, and I am thrilled to welcome you to another Innovate State conversation this evening. For those of you in the room, who is here for the first time to experience Innovate State? First timers? Yeah, hands up in there. Okay, excellent. I would like to welcome you on behalf of my team and excited to have everyone here and those that are going to be tuning in virtually and watching from afar. Innovate State is our fireside chat speaker series that we've been doing for over a decade here at Michigan State University, and we are thrilled to bring innovators, entrepreneurs, executives, investors, and leaders from across the globe back to campus, many of whom are MSU alumni, to share their story and to give advice and to help you understand what it's like to take that risk and to be bold and to innovate from whatever industry or position you have, both as a student now and going forward when you graduate from Michigan State and do wonderful things. So again, welcome tonight, and so glad you could be here with us. I just have a couple announcements about upcoming programs before we get to the real star of the show, our featured speaker here this evening. Burgess Institute runs this campus-wide nationally ranked entrepreneurship program, right? So you all should know that, that whether you're enrolled in the entrepreneurship minor or you are a member of our venture creation program or you are here for the very first time, that you are part of an ecosystem that is nationally ranked, one of the top programs in the country. And so that is a pride point that you all should be mindful of and should be excited about. And subsequently, there's programming throughout the year happening all the time that we're running or facilitating that's available to you. One said event is called 2-Day Venture. Anyone here been to 2-Day Venture before? Yeah, I see a few hands. Excellent. I know our speaker went to a 2-Day Venture in the past. So 2-Day Venture is one of our most dynamic programs. It's an opportunity for students to come together over 36 hours for a nominal fee or waived fee now, I think. Nominal fee. But we feed you and then some with all wonderful food over 36 hours. So it's totally worth it. And you get to coalesce around ideas or solutions to ideas or problems with other students and form teams. And it is super, super fun. I'll actually be here Friday afternoon as a support coach or a venture coach, something like that. It's a fancy title. I will probably be of very little value, but we're going to have other people here that are going to be amazing and helping you out across the 36 hours during that journey. But many of our best student venture ideas actually originate at a 2-Day Venture. And I'm sure, again, Brendan, our speaker, can probably talk more about 2-Day Venture, other programs we offer that help support students that are pursuing ideas and trying to bring something to the marketplace. So super fun. It's not too late to register. If you're looking to do a high impact, dynamic experience yet this year, totally encourage it. You can go to eship.msu.edu, find information there, or you can contact me today. Find my colleague Aubrey, raising her hand right over here, who really runs the show, and she can let you know more information about it. The other thing I want to mention, we also have our last Innovate State of the Fall semester coming up in just a few short weeks, and that's going to be November 19th. Yes, excellent. Also happens to be, serendipitously, Women's Entrepreneurship Day, globally. And so we are thrilled and proud to welcome back Julie Falpel, an MSU alumna, back to campus from Wyoming to actually share her story. We're really excited for her to talk about her role as an entrepreneur and as a leader in her marketplace. She's really excited to be here on campus that day as well. So tell your friends, come back here in a couple weeks. It's going to be taking place right here in the Entrepreneurship Lab in the heart of campus. Having said that, again, I'm so excited to introduce you all to our speaker this evening, one of our more recent grads here for our Emerging Leaders Speaker Series. Brendan is just a joy to be around. I remember when he was a young student, not that long ago, working through different ideas, and we are so proud to call him one of our grads because not just of his character, but also what he's been able to accomplish. And it's neat because he's working on something now full-time that he started when he was a student. So I think when you're here today hearing his story, pick up on cues about ways that he was able to overcome obstacles, persist, the failures, the successes, the learning along the way. It's just going to be a really fun ride tonight. So without further ado, I'm going to welcome up Brendan and our colleagues from the student intern program here at the Burgess Institute to carry on the conversation. So take it away. Thank you all.
How's it going? Can you hear me all right? All right. Hey, how's it going? Go green!
Go White!
All right.
Yeah, thank you for the introduction, Chris, and Brendan, thank you for joining us. Do you want to give a little bit of background on yourself and just quickly introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. Now, before I introduce myself, I just want to first invite any of you here who may want to participate in a 2-minute meditation. Breathwork is something that's really important in rooting ourselves to alleviate stress. There's a lot of things that could be on our minds right now, like finals coming up or other things that are just at mind. So if you wish to participate, I'm just going to ask that you can close your eyes. What we're going to be doing is 5 rounds of 6-second breaths. So we'll breathe in for 6, hold for 1, out for 6, out for 1. We're going to do this 5 times to start. If you wish, you can also just keep a soft gaze on the floor or close your laptop lids just to have a way to become more present. So to start off, we can close our eyes and start with an inhale, going up to 6, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Hold for 1, out, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. In for 6, 1, 5, 6. Hold for 1 and out. 2, 3, 4, 5. In on 1, 2. Hold for 1 and out for 5. 8, 10. Last round, let's go in for 1. 5, 6. Hold for 1 and out. 6. Now for the next minute, if you may wish to continue your breathing cycles, feel free to do so. Just remember, take these 6-second inhales and big exhales. Again, many of us here might be feeling a lot of anxiety coming into this room at the moment. Maybe there's a lot of things we're worried about, like classes or homework or what the future may hold. I know being a student, it's a lot on your shoulders to be like, what am I going to do after school? What am I going to do while I'm in school? Do I want to participate in the major that I'm in, or do I want to switch to something else? Whichever the case, just remember that deep breathing techniques are always a good way to bring yourself back to being present, and at the end of the day, you're able to use that as a way to achieve stress relief. That being said, hi everyone. My name is Brendan Wang. I'm the founder and CEO of CAPNOS with the mission to help 1 million people quit vaping by 2027. I was 14 years old when I first began vaping. I was addicted for over 5 years. I would go into school bathrooms, take a quick hit of the vape, maybe hit it in my sleeve. And during this time, I realized I was just vaping as a coping mechanism for stress relief, like anxiety or an oral fixation. In 2019, as a sophomore here at Michigan State, I invented the CAPNOS Zero. It's the world's first and only flavored pressurized air inhaler that works like this. There's a silicone valve that pops open to create that throat hit sensation, all while having 0 smoke, 0 nicotine, and 0 charge. It's just flavored pressurized air using natural extracts like peppermint, orange citrus, or lavender. And since launching in my senior year, we've been able to deliver over 70,000 devices to 70 countries and growing. We've been able to present with the FDA and NIH with a grant application to pursue clinical studies. And now we're working further in our endeavors to grow via retail and work with quit partners as well as we advocate for better habits. So that's a brief story of my background, and I'm excited for all the questions to dive deeper into topics today.
Yeah, firstly, thank you for that thoughtful exercise. It was great, I'm sure, for all of us to kind of level set and really calm down and prepare for this conversation, and thank you for the introduction. CAPNOS Zero sounds like a fantastic initiative that you came up with. So the first thing I want to hear from you is, going back all the way, coming here to MSU, you majored in supply chain. what was that decision like as a high school senior or as a college freshman? How did you end up choosing supply chain, and why did you choose supply chain?
Yeah, in high school, I first wanted to be an airline pilot. From then on, I took a psychology course, and I was like, hey, you know what? I've always had I love understanding how systems work, and that could be with people, with products, and with the planet. So from that point on, in high school, I struggled a lot with substance abuse. Thanks. And so I struggled with substance abuse in high school, and I got to a point where I realized I was going down a track that had not such a bright future. From that point on, I really wanted to turn things around, and in my senior year of high school, I invented this Boca Band, which is a bracelet to put your long-term and short-term goals to see where you want to go and how to get yourself there. I fell in love with the product creation process and also connecting with a means to help others achieve something bigger than ourselves. And from that point on, I knew supply chain, being the fantastic program that it is here at Michigan State, would be a good fit to further understand how systems work, what I can do to create improvements among future projects and other endeavors.
Yeah, that's really cool, especially the story with the band. So at that point, when you realized that supply chain would be great for you to understand about the products and the processes, did you also immediately know that entrepreneurship would be playing a part in your college career? Or if not, when did you realize that entrepreneurship is also something that you would love to be involved in and would continue to pursue?
Yeah, much of it has to do with Boca Bands. At that point on, that was the first experience. It was this first taste at what entrepreneurship could look like. It was dedicating myself to a project I'm passionate about. It's being able to spend my time doing something that can help others. That to me was really important, and I knew here at Michigan State, with the Burgess Institute, as well as the entrepreneurial programs that exist, that there'd be significant resources that I could access. And after coming to school here, going to two-day venture events or whatever it may be, like the Burgess New Venture Challenge, I remember seeing the student startups and just being amazed as a freshman and just wanting to keep coming back and checking out more things going on.
Yeah, for sure. And that's a really interesting story, especially with the Burgess New Venture Challenge, just sitting there and looking at all the great things student entrepreneurs are doing. For you, what was your experience like, though, like in that freshman year, coming in and living on campus, being away, and taking it all in, just being a college student?
I entered Michigan State as a freshman in 2018. I was part of the residential business community, known as the RBC, and I shared a dorm room with one of my best friends who would later become the co-founder of CAPNOS. In that first year experience, I was really taking the time to further explore myself. Nowadays, I'm happy to say that I am out and proud. I'm a bisexual person. I represent the LGBTQ community. And in my freshman year, I was really able to explore more of my own identity and what it means to be a queer person, as well as an Asian American, first-generation citizen, and getting involved through various functions, whether it's in business or in personal relationships, was really tantamount in being able to feel a better sense of my own identity through these years and be able to become the happiest person that I can be today.
Definitely. And as you were going through that journey of, discovering and understanding more about your own identities, can you shed a little more light on what it was like to really stick to, or what were the core values and the morals or the guiding principles taking you through that process of discovery and really learning a lot more both about yourself and everything else around you?
When I was 14 years old, I had made 2 attempts to take my own life. On the second attempt, I was sitting in my mom's car, running the engine. The garage doors were closed, but the windows were down. After 1 minute, I was to pass out, and after 2 or 3, I likely would have died in that car. From that point on, I had this sense of hope that as much pain as I'm feeling now in this present moment of being extremely lonely, of feeling depressed, I held out. It was recognizing that there can be a better future for myself, and I gotta stick around, hang out, and see how to get myself there. So for me, it's been a big journey of understanding my sense of purpose, coming to find that through experiencing what it means to feel safe, to have healthy relationships in life, being first gen, there are these very tough standards to achieve, and it can be especially difficult being in further marginalized communities too. So throughout that journey, there's been lots of trial and error, but by the end of the day, for me, it was all about what can I learn from this point of suffering? If I'm going through an especially painful or challenging moment, there's a better side I can come out of this with learned experiences to contribute toward a more optimal life. And that is one where I feel happy, feel satisfied, I feel balanced, and that's been an active journey.
Yeah. And no, that's a really inspiring story. So can you, I guess, dive a little more deeper then on coming out of that experience and coming into being in college and almost having a clean slate to work with, on the activities you be involved in, the clubs you participate in, the classes you take, or whatever that was. What was all that like for you? Like, what did you take with you to every single place you showed up at, and how do you think that evolved, even in your 4 years here?
Mm-hmm. I partied a whole bunch in high school. I was able to get all that time out there to be rowdy, to be wild. My twin and I would throw these huge parties. I could go on about those stories, but when entering college, I knew time had a different meaning to it. There's much more at stake here, especially considering the cost of college. It can be very expensive, and I recognize that I come from a place of having some financial privilege to help with that. So I didn't have to work part-time jobs or full-time on the side just to make ends meet, just to be able to eat dinner. And that's something we often take for granted. By recognizing this, I also knew it's time to get to work. It's time to see where I can find opportunities to advance myself. After my freshman year, I went to intern in Cincinnati with a large airline company, and I was able to learn so much from that experience of what I enjoyed in terms of like social planning and events and the systematic technical information I learned, but I knew the environment wouldn't be a good fit for me long term. That was a huge indicator to then come back into my sophomore year just ready for something new. The way I looked at it wasn't like, what's the next business I can start? What's the next problem I can solve? But rather, what's a problem that I can observe is going on right now that I can have some relevancy in solving, whether it's a small impact or large. And it just so happened that through that process, CAPNOS was able to come into play. But I was still, even while starting CAPNOS sophomore year, I was involved. I was the director of external relations with the Supply Chain Management Association. This was during COVID, but through that we had still a lot of opportunities to engage with community. If anyone here would like to hear a dedicated talk on supply chain management principles, I'm actually hosting a general member meeting next Wednesday, same room, same time, where we go all in supply chain. But I was an avid participant of that, and then I'll also be heavily integrated with Burgess Institute through working at the Hatch. It's a great co-working space to check out, through getting myself in some various clubs here and extracurriculars. But by the time senior year came rolling around, I was just focused on CAPNOS. That was the time where it's like, hey, I'm ready to go full-time in on this and just really take all my focus on this one thing.
Yeah, and so going from that space, entering sophomore year where you're ready for your next challenge, your next problem to solve, and having all the experiences you did, what was it like going from all those ideas or concepts driving you to the actual product, and more specifically, building something new in a category, in a product space that simply didn't exist? Can you shed a little more light on what that process was like?
Yeah, it took 2 years to get product to market. In these 2 years, we were obsessed with R&D, research and development. At the core, though, you got to have really solid market research. So it all began with this. I had the hypothesis that if, after surveying thousands of people, partly through 2-day venture, that was actually one of the challenges, was to survey people, we were able to gather feedback that indicated 2 out of 3 people have an oral fixation as the root craving for vaping. So at this point, it's like, okay, if there's this population that specifically wants this experience, how can we curate that, build it, test it, iterate, and create a good enough product that gets out to market and it sells to the masses. It took a lot of, again, trial and error, but it really took a village, having interns who could help create the 3D printing design, having mentors with corporate product development, and finding support systems to be able to build something out, try it out, and test it, then launch it.
So once you've done that, and once you've done the validation, coming up with the product development part of it, the next step of like actually fundraising or trying to get money to make sure you can actually manufacture and go to market, how was that like? Especially because thinking about raising money maybe through VCs or general investors, they love to categorize things. And how were you able to position yourself there again with something so non-traditional?
CAPNOS devices are essentially creating a new category. So we have this bigger smoking cessation category, and cessation means to help quit or reduce. And there comes this sort of gray area where we've had to navigate, hey, how do we not make explicit medical claims, claiming that this is a quit vaping or quit smoking device, while also being in compliance to sell this while having the right messaging to connect with the right buyers. From that point, it was a matter of getting to, okay, so the question was,
Yeah, the question was, how were you able to fundraise or
fundraising.
pitch it to
Yeah.
people?
So here's the big challenge with that. For one, I was a college student at the time. So I don't have a lot of credibility working in academia or research or product building. So at the end of the day, people are looking for the person to invest in. The idea, sure, the idea could float around, but ends up who's going to be behind this to actually get it going, to make sure it survives, to make sure that it can withstand the test of time. There were many folks who doubted how far we were willing to go to take this and bring it into to market at scale. And a lot of those conversations early on were saying, how defensible is it? Do you have an active patent on it? Well, that takes time. Right now, we just need to get to market, develop sales, show product market fit. And over time, because we're able to market these as flavored pressurized air inhalers used as behavioral aids, we're not making explicit claims, so we're still able to sell within regulatory compliance. And at that point, it was just saying, hey, having some really great relationships with a few mentors helped get our first round of funding, and we were able to secure that July of 2022 and haven't raised money since then. So we've been able to go largely bootstrapped rather than pursue the venture funding route.
Awesome. And you touched on the fact where you had to carefully navigate, not explicitly labeling or not explicitly making some health claims to avoid that part of regulation or that scrutiny that would come with it. Can you dive a little deeper on what it was like for you as someone, as you mentioned yourself, you don't have an inherent health background, and being able to really get smart on those things really quickly so you could make sure to position your business in an effective manner and navigating all of that processes and all that.
Yeah, this is education advocacy in general. With innovation, there's much that is not understood, so it has been my job to advocate through education. It's being able to collect use cases from the thousands of people who have used our products, having reviews, sharing that, hearing stories from pregnant mothers or people going through medical procedures who have to quit. It's hearing their success stories that we're able to use that toward further efforts and being able to lessen that kind of, to convince more people that, hey, we have something that has lots of grassroots efforts to become something much larger. Take, for instance, October 21st, I went to Washington, D.C. and visited the White Oaks FDA headquarters, where I actually presented to the directors of the FDA, National Institutes of Health, NIH, and share my story, share the research that we've gotten, and share our intentions to build systems through education, through accessibility, and convince the world that, hey, this is a solution that's ready to be adopted. We need support, and we'd like you to join us.
Certainly. And all the things that you've described, you were doing before and you're still doing now, in between running CAPNOS and still doing the talks like you did with the FDA and the NIH, or when you talk back to your time as a student, doing all the clubs, doing the classes, but still having to balance every single process from the ground up to build it for CAPNOS. What was that like balancing it all from a work sense, but also retaining your sense of self and retaining your mental health and clarity through that period?
It's like how to stay sane during entrepreneurship. I am very fortunate to have met my partner my freshman year here, or our freshman year. So Ethan, he's been a very big part of my support system. I've also had my twin sister who went to school here. In early COVID, we experienced a very violent, traumatizing situation in which I was then her caregiver, and that was very tolling. Here we have the onset, we're ready to create our first prototypes. But now I'm dealing with, oh my gosh, the weight of making sure my sister doesn't take her own life, to be there for someone, to be able to show love, but also receive it too. And that was something that was very intentional, is being able to find where I could seek that support emotionally. So that way, by building myself, taking care of my emotional, spiritual, and physical needs were key to be able to go through and come at this saying, hey, as stressful as this is, I can get through it just through these practices, through deep breathing, be able to get past and keep moving forward.
And then on that vein, can you talk a little bit more about navigating the expectations around, needing to excel versus your own authenticity and your values for autonomy and longevity and things like that?
Mm-hmm. So with the need to excel, a lot of this can come from societal pressures of hey, I have to join that club, or I have to get this internship at this company to feel like I'm of value. I think that's BS. We place so much of these extrinsic values on placing ourselves in these positions or ranks, and look at that solely as how we perceive the value that we have for ourselves and for others. I think this can be very dangerous because it could lead to constant external validation rather than finding strength within. So developing confidence and being able to really focus in on how to ground myself through those practices was really, really important, and being able to achieve a sense of harmony or balance.
Yeah, and you just touched on the fact that external validation and how you don't really believe in it. So what was it like for you still being in a place, or being surrounded by most of your peers who probably matriculated into more traditional corporate professional careers, but you going immediately into your own venture, and what was your mindset into it, and just the whole context surrounding that? How did that feel? You're graduating and you're immediately going into your own thing.
Well, I mean, I have all the love for my corporate besties. At the end of the day, it can be a secure job. And in today's job market, it can be very difficult to find jobs or find internships, period. So, especially if you're an international student, oh my goodness, now you got to look for visas and it's you got the whole world is trying to see you fail. And it feels very exhaustive, especially if you're, say, someone like me, right? A person of color who's also a queer person as well, who finds that I don't have this kind of easy in with established groups. So I had to learn to define, what does it mean to feel authentic to my identity? It comes from really not giving a shit. So what if someone thinks this of me or that of me? I have to remember my voice and how I value myself as a person, and the way that I give to others, but in the way that I receive is, at the end of the day, just want to create abundance and just hold space for love and appreciation. As that may sound, it really has been a big part in still being able to feel like anything's possible, having the motivation to keep pushing forward.
Yeah, and that's really, really important. But to that vein a little bit, you now sit here having accomplished some truly incredible things with CAPNOS. But looking back and peeling back the curtain a little bit, what are some moments where you were properly okay, I'm struggling right now, but then you were able to show that through putting together your efforts and all the things that you've combined with your support systems, with your teams, to actually make things work, even though there were times where you were definitely like, I am struggling.
I remember the first time was the first prototype we made, we prioritized form over function. So we wanted to design the Zero to just be a sleek rectangular shape, but the silicone valve that's inside is round. So we later learned that we had to design around the circular shape to achieve function over form. That has been a big part of our operating system, is figure out how can we make do with the least amount of resources, operating with scarcity, but being able to create abundance. So when you have, say, rather than raise millions of dollars and you're just going with what you can earn back through profits, through revenues, is how do you turn that back and be able to support other programming to continue forward as well. But it comes from that learning experience and being able to use that too.
Yeah. And on the note of that learning experience, do you want to shed some specific examples on things now you sit here and you're like, that was such a rookie mistake, or with learning you've learned to optimize some things, and if you want to share that with the group that you think would be helpful as they think about potentially starting their own ventures.
Mm-hmm. I'd say that example of the function over form was definitely the rookie mistake. Some other mistakes I've made have been around, well, rather than phrasing it that way, what I've learned from mistakes, which are really just tests, right? Like sometimes you want to make mistakes because then you can know, hey, this isn't what we want to do. This isn't the direction we want to go with. Here's what we can do instead to have more focus and achieve the goals in a better, more efficient way. So some of that has looked like hiring. Sometimes there's agencies or partners that were too expensive that we didn't let go of quick enough, and learning to shed excess weight and being able to say no to then find that track of, hey, here's where we can create the most value through building better products. Like for instance, this is our premium line. We started off the Zero and the Easy. They're priced at $24.99, and then we have the Ligure and Breezy at $74.99. But with these, you're able to have a bite cap. You can also fidget with it, control your pressure strength as well, and just get an overall sensory experience. But it all comes from being willing to fail and being able to experiment to start.
Yeah. And you talked about some of the partnerships that you had to build and some of the partnerships you had to shed. So in the process of doing business, especially as a young company, when you have to find partners to help you, really take it to market, what was the process like of finding the right partners that you felt shared your values or shared your goals to make sure that you were aligned as you were going into it to maximize your impact?
Before it comes to partners, it comes to the team members that we have. So I'm excited that we have currently 5 full-time members. We're located all over the world, and including partners as well as collaborators, we have people in 6 continents. I was very intentional about finding talent who are able to approach this with a sense of, one, understanding. Generally, the folks on our full-time staff have had some experience personally with smoking or vaping, can understand the nuances of the messaging that goes along with that, and being able to be the customer that we serve. Another part of it is recognizing, is there a win-win situation out of this? At the end of the day, we set out budgets that we want to make, and if there are folks who can work within that, who can deliver the kind of value we're looking for, then we choose those in which we get the best value. But that's a generic sort of business idea anyway. You do want to generally push toward, and not even just business, but personal, right? Like if you're putting a ton of effort into one avenue and you're not receiving much, it's probably time to shed that weight and move forward with those that have the strongest branches.
Certainly. And as you've continued growing and learning and gone across to growing your product line from the entry-level products to more premium products and added more functionality, what was your process like of understanding your consumer beyond your initial ideas? Because coming up with the ideas, for sure, you had a vision for it, right, that you were able to materialize, but how did you almost step beyond that vision to understand more people and understand their perspectives to be able to serve them and impact them in a more positive manner?
it's a constant process of checking in. Most recently, in the month of July of this year, we were able to launch a survey with 372 respondents in the CAPNOS mailing list. These were respondents across 30 countries. About 60% of them use CAPNOS devices. We were able to ask questions first about vaping usage. How often are you hitting it? What are your triggers? What are your sensory dependencies? And how would you rate them? Now, this was information that we were able to use to directly support the grant application for clinical funding or for a clinical study to take place, because we're able to take information that's not yet found in existing academia, which is hard to come by nowadays, and present this information in a way that allowed potential partners, for government regulators to achieve a better understanding of what we're doing, the impacts of how it works, but also allows us to ask about the user experience. And from day one, it has always been about designing around the customer. Like, what can make for a better sensation? Like, the Ligura took about 8 months from ideation to launch, whereas the Zero took 2 years. So after the first time around, it's like, hey, this next time, we can go off of past experiences, learn from that, but also just gather exactly what people are looking for to then create something that's much better and improved.
And on that note of past experiences, what are some things you did with CAPNOS when you were in school, but then you eventually stopped doing those practices or taking those experiences? And conversely, what are some things you do now you wish that you'd started doing a lot sooner while you were maybe still a student here and working on CAPNOS?
Mm-hmm. While I was a student here, what I was often doing is seeking mentors, like constantly looking for people who have leaps and bounds of time spent either building businesses or bringing products to market. I wanted to hear their experiences. I wanted to hear their lessons that they've learned from their failures, hear their philosophies. And I am who I am today because I have had this abundant sort of amount of resources that help shape who I am today, to collect information and better shape. Here's the kind of person that I want to be, and here's how I can also direct my life to head in that direction.
For sure. And bringing it back near the start of the conversation we had about your time at MSU for a bit, were there specific classes you think you took here after you started CAPNOS and you were like looking at your list of electives or just looking at classes and you were like, I'd love to take this to explore this topic or just have more chats with this professor or something like that?
I'd say studying abroad, that was huge. MSU is a great school for studying abroad programs. If it's within budget and if it's something that you're able to do, I definitely recommend having that experience to gain some global experience, learn what life can be like for folks outside the States. But as far as business goes, it was more or less the standard classes I took. I actually did not do an entrepreneurship minor. I was fully supply chain and committed to that, but it got to the point where I was trying to credit load, so that way my senior year I had a lot less credits, less time in school, more time on the business.
Certainly. And you touched on the study abroad, and you were mentioning how CAPNOS is available in 70 countries right now. So how much of that experience you think early on studying abroad and having that international exposure helped you when you were taking your business international and working with partners who would eventually be from other countries?
Yeah, there's just seeing how people live their lives. At the end of the day, it's seeing, so I had gone to Rome. I attended with my partner. We were there for 4 weeks, and then stayed another week for traveling. I was able to see, okay, Italians smoke lots of cigarettes. Okay, it's very prevalent, and I was able to gain that sort of worldview that, oh, okay, in these other countries, smoking is much more prevalent. Now that allows me to assess, hey, maybe there's potential to address smoking in this region in the future. At the end of the day, it's just remembering right now in the US is where we have our largest market, and this is right now where we have that focus, but we have already started developments to obtain warehousing in the UK as well as Australia. And we're working with their regulatory systems to just recognize the existence of this new category and then support the initiative to bring CAPNOS out through global distributors rather than shipping from the US, so we can just have our devices be more affordable and accessible for people all over.
So when you're not making an immense impact through initiatives like CAPNOS around the world, and you're not doing meditating or breathing exercises, what do you find yourself doing?
Cooking. I love to cook. I love to travel. So after graduation, I spent some time living at home for 8 months, kind of figuring out where's next. I could work remotely, and we went to Denver to live there for a year and a half. That was so much fun. I went hiking all the time, went sightseeing, and even through that, went to go visit my team members in Bosnia and Nigeria and the Philippines, and also went to China to develop the Ligura. I've found that I've been able to live this life where I get to experience it on my own terms. For me, autonomy is very important, so I very much value getting to decide how I spend my time, because I realize time is precious at the end of the day. Tomorrow's not guaranteed, so each and every day really is a gift. And through that intentionality, look at it like, hey, let's still find time to do the hobbies I enjoy. Like, I love being active. I went this morning, I did a yoga vinyasa class for an hour and then swam for an hour. So that to me is what health and wealth looks like, is just being able to make sure that from a physical, spiritual, and emotional standpoint, that I have the tools and habits worked in to sustain myself and going forward in this stressful, uncertain times.
Definitely. And you touched on autonomy and the importance of autonomy and what it means to you. So if you were to give a pitch to any of the people here about why they should be doing entrepreneurship as opposed to a traditional career, how big of a part would the autonomy play, and what else would you include in that pitch to really sell the idea to someone?
Mm-hmm. Well, I don't know that this is the best pitch to pursue entrepreneurship, because I think rather I might have to convince you not to get into it, because you have to be really convicted to really want to pursue entrepreneurship full time. Like I said earlier, there's nothing wrong with pursuing a stable job. At the end of the day, having stability to do something where you can contribute to a community can still be a very fulfilling experience. So I don't denounce that it's worse or better than entrepreneurship, but as someone who has gone through the corporate route, recognize that's not a route for me. I've developed this burning drive and passion to live like I don't have another day, and to grab opportunity, really seize it up, and find ways to keep challenging myself. Of course, it's so much sacrifice, not being able to do the same kind of social events or hanging out as often. Stress and anxiety, it's a big part. That's why emotional regulation is so very important in entrepreneurship, but also having the support systems too. So at the end of the day, what I like to say is, if you're going to pursue it, think about what is a relevant problem that I can solve, and how do I go about this in a way where I create value for my community. I think at the end of the day, businesses, those that have a way of helping others, it could be even just like serving food or anything of that, can still have that lasting impact to continue that work thereon and so forth.
Definitely. And the importance of conviction that you touched on, and the ability to find an effective problem to solve, and both your passion for problem solving. I was curious to hear what is the best part about problem solving for you? Is it that sense of accomplishment after hey, I beat this challenge, or I beat this level in a video game, if you will?
I've gotten to the point where it feels like reaching a milestone is another step along the way, and I want to be intentional on having more space to really celebrate things at times. For me, it's just become a route of, okay, I've seen this scenario play out. As someone who spends lots of time strategizing and considering options in the future, it's how do I manifest this potential to happen? And once we're there, it's oh, okay, sweet, on to the next. But to reflect and take a moment to celebrate, to reflect and say, hey, we've been able to make it this far, go through these accomplishments, just kind of creates space and invitation to bring in more opportunities and abundance as well.
Yeah, Thank you for that. And before we turn over to audience Q&A, the last question I have for you is, if you had 30 seconds to share the best takeaways you have from life, from business, from anything, what would they be?
Each and every one of us has the power within to create direction through grounding. No matter the external stimuli, whether it could be your world is crashing down, you failed an exam, you got rejected from the company or group you want to get into, just remember you always have that power within to leap over this, recognize it as an experience that you can build up from, and fall in love with that process. Instead of looking at what can I accomplish or achieve, look at how can I build the systems to allow for longevity, allow for sustainability, and allow for myself to find peace with myself and with my community at the end of the day. So thank you all.
Yeah, thank you so much. That was a fantastic answer. And thank you again for all the amazing insights you shared tonight. And we'll open it up for audience Q&A.
So are you full-time on that right now then? Like you don't have any other like part-time job or anything right now?
I've been full-time. The question is whether I've been full-time. And I've been full-time since June of 2022.
Hey, thank you so much for stopping by at Michigan State again. I kind of wanted to ask, were there any points where you wanted to pivot, and how did that look?
In early 2021, as we're figuring out product development and where we were going with the device building, it was really attractive at that time during fundraising to say, hey, let's go into tech. Let's build software. Let's build an app. On top of that, people were saying, why don't you add smoke to it? People love to see the smoke. Or just add nicotine. That's what people are really addicted to. It took a lot of conviction at the end to say, hey, hear me out. Hear me out. Let's not do that. Let's try to go this way. Keep at it, even if the world thinks that, hey, we're totally wrong. This is not the right approach. We can, through time, prove them all wrong. And we've been able to do much of that. So it's been a very gratifying experience to keep pushing forward and go on from that point. So thank you for the question. Yes.
Well, this is about like your product. Like number one, do you sell it in stores right now, or is it just online? And then if it is just online, if you sold it in stores, would there be a specific age requirement for it?
So the question is, are we selling online or in stores? Also, is there an age requirement? We're currently selling online at the moment. We are in discussions with major retailer buyers. We do recognize that the market is primed for this, and there's so much interest from many different avenues for innovation to have tools like such. As far as age goes, there's no age requirement. People of all ages can use this anytime, anywhere. Since it has zero smoke, zero nicotine, and zero charge, with no battery, no heat is being produced. So all it is just taking in the surrounding air, pressurizing it, and then taking the aroma extracts to perceive it through flavor, just through the sense of smell. So that's, in a sense, how it works, but we've been able to see youth use this as well and help with their efforts too.
I think you mentioned that your main focus is to stop 1 million people from vaping by 2027. I was just curious on how you're measuring that number.
So the question is, how do we measure helping 1 million people quit vaping by 2027? For us, it's first looking at units sold. That is usually a big indicator. Granted, there are some discrepancies with, say, one person purchasing multiple and not having that level of certainty. There's still an opportunity to look at that from a more granular level, but the way we see to it is that through additional distribution channels to moving from, say, thousands of units a month to tens of thousands to hundreds of thousands through that level of scale, we can then assess at a bit bigger level, hey, here's how we're getting closer to that goal of helping 1 million people quit. And for us, we don't have the explicit message of saying you need to stop vaping. You know, we recognize it's a coping mechanism. For us, it's like we're ready for you when you need it. And if you're trying to eliminate, replace, or reduce the behavior, we're here to help you with any of those. Yes.
Did the pandemic have any like significant impact? Because I know you mentioned you started growing, around that time. So, whether positive or negative, did it play any significant role?
What role did COVID have? In our sense, COVID was at its prime during much of the product development phase. So fortunately, there wasn't too much of go-to-market on the ground. For us, it was being able to work with our manufacturers abroad, being able to just keep testing. So in a way, I found that it was also really helpful because having classes online did allow me to have some more flexibility with running CAPNOS during COVID.
Did you face any challenges like people thinking that this could actually be harmful for them? And so, if yes, how did you convince them otherwise?
So how often do we get people asking, is this harmful? How do we demonstrate safety? As mentioned, because there's no battery, there's no heat being generated, it's oftentimes someone may mistake this as a vape, or they call it a smokeless vape or a nicotineless vape. It's not a vape because that means you have to aerosolize and heat up a liquid. So it's for us to just say, hey, it's not that. It's actually a flavored pressurized air inhaler. Here's why. Here's what's in it. Here's how it works. And generally, like with ad accounts, we see that often happening, saying, oh, this looks like a tobacco product, so we have to submit a rebuttal and generally have some success, but others can be a bit difficult. Yes.
Thank you very much. How have you handled, and if any, pushback from the people who don't want people to have this? Who sell the ones with the smoke?
How do we go about with pushbacks? And specifically, you're asking from people who are in the tobacco or vaping industry. Now, their business will continue on, whether we exist or not. Addiction is a very profitable industry, and tobacco has been known to be abused and used in excess. So for us, the pushback that we're working toward is more with regulatory decision makers, with retail buyers, and demonstrating here's ways we can reduce risk through research, through advocacy, through testimonials, and through that be able to overcome the hurdles of demonstrating safety and efficacy to unlock more doors. But big tobacco hasn't come knocking yet, so we'll see where time takes us. Yes, and then.
I might have missed something because I came late. I just wanted to ask, so like before you actually came up with the product, how did you come up with the capital to start producing the product in like large amounts?
How did I come up with the funding and capital to get to launch? So as a student, I participated in pitch competitions. I applied for scholarships, and through that was able to obtain $75,000 in non-dilutive grant funding. And that was a huge part in getting to launch with the first batch. That first batch allowed us to drive sales data, which then allowed us to work with mentors who would then say, hey, we want to support you in your first round. Here's some cash to help get you going to grow a bit further from that point on.
So what are you doing to market your products? And then are you struggling with any marketing towards any like addicted like people or anything?
What are we doing to market CAPNOS? What's our go-to-market essentially? It's holistic. Like the whole marketing side of things we look at from having different funnels of like getting awareness as well as getting people to convert. So from this point, it's looking like having website SEO, making sure we have lots of descriptions for people to find us. We're active on TikTok and other social media channels. We've been able to achieve virality on a number of videos. You can find us at myCAPNOS or just searching CAPNOS. And through that, we're also looking at working with obtaining earned media, working with advocates, affiliates, and developing this entire marketing ecosystem that allows us to have a very high return on ad spend and just keep marketing spend minimal through organic marketing. That way, word of mouth, that's the most valuable. And that's where we really want to focus our efforts, is building the word of mouth capabilities and having that naturally become a much larger, better known effect. Thanks for the question. All right, well, how are we feeling at this moment? Do we feel at least like we've learned something new today or tried out technique? And remember how we started off? We started off with our deep breathing. So if you're still feeling any like anxiousness, just remember, you can always use some deep breathing to help calm yourself out. So thank you all again.